Do 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 do.
Hi, folks.
Start it up, John.
Start it up, John. Hi, folks. I'm John, also known as DorkLovesSports on Twitter and YouTube, and this is one of my best friends in real life. Would you like to introduce yourself, buddy?
Hey, John, it's me, Paul, again, Paul Bomba, www.paulbomba.com. Check it out.
And we are doing an Airwolf rewatch podcast called Airwolf to Rewolf. Would you like to tell them our idea, Paulie?
Well, look, Airwolf is a property from the 80s. At the time, it was a kind of exciting show with the highest paid actor in TV land, and Jan Michael Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, for reasons which we can discuss later, but suffice to say, things fell apart for Airwolf. The property has gone into disuse, and we want to do a rewatch of the original seasons and get together on writing a script. John.
Hey. So, we are watching the second episode of the series, Shadow of the Hawk Part 2. I have a couple questions right off the bat, if you don't mind just jumping right into it. One, was that the same lizard? I think that's a very important thing to get into. And two, is there a lost episode of Airwolf that explains some of the things that happen off screen between the two episodes? Because if there is, I want to see it. So
I don't think there is one, but it did leave me with many questions. There's a certain, I think the term in the film land is the MacGuffin, which is like a set of assumptions that you just kind of, okay, this is what's happened. And I think they did the rare intra-episode MacGuffin, where between episodes, something happens, people's lives change, relationships change, and well, hey, let's talk about it, because it is peculiar.
It's a little jarring. It's a little jarring.
It's not uninteresting, but yeah, it's certainly jarring. I mean, have you ever seen Knight Rider? Have you ever seen the pilot for Knight Rider?
I have definitely seen it, but other than remembering that he gets shot and his face gets messed up and they have to do surgery and then it's David Hasselhoff, that's pretty much all I have.
But in episode 2, he's in this organization. There's this woman there. They're talking about it like they're just pals, And as a viewer, you're just like, huh, what? Like, where'd she come from? And that's kind of like what's going on in episode 2 of Airwolf. Not as bad, but
yeah, and
certainly odd.
And we have to keep in mind, right? This is old TV, so people were actually waiting a week in between. I think you could get away with more of that when you weren't watching the episodes back to back to back or in such close succession. So
they weren't going to Reddit or whatever one of these websites, BuzzFeed or whatever, to get the latest scoop on what's going on in the episode. If you got up and you went to the bathroom and you came back too late, the commercial had ended, you were boned, man. You were out. you were out. You had to ask your wife or your partner or your friend or whatever. Yeah. Yo, what happened? Where did what the hell is that girl's name? Angela? We're what happened to Angela? We don't know.
Okay, so I think the elephant in the room, what we're kind of getting at, is that there about a week goes by. I think that's actually in the text, right? It's a week passes.
I think so, yeah.
And then our stoic hero, the titular wolf, is now in a really sort of loving relationship with Gabrielle, right? They appear to be a unit now in a way that was very surprising to me, given that his whole premise was, I can't fall in love because everyone I fall in love with dies, which will come up later.
Well, that was one of the thoughts I had initially, which was when did this happen? She's cooking for him and hanging around at his house.
It is lovely. It is homey. It's warm. Well, it's warm from her direction in a way.
Well, it's warm from him too. I mean, he's clearly he's clearly paying attention to her and
Yes,
interested in her, and
yes,
you know.
yes.
But
the stoicism's still there. Although there was like a cute smirk before they kissed, and like he did show what appeared to be genuine emotion and affection for her, which was both really nice to see and, as we're discussing, kind of fucking confusing. Excuse my language.
This goes to my thesis here that Airwolf is not a spy military action thing. It's actually a journey towards emotional expression.
I hope so. I have that same hope. And he has such a wonderful model in Santini, although I feel like we're going to come across some things with Santini that are going to be a little bit, that are going to rub against current sensibilities. Like, I just feel some stuff coming. But
yeah, well, we haven't really seen it yet,
no,
right?
No, he's been lovely. He's been nothing but lovely. He's been a warm human male example, which wasn't overly common at the time, I would say. Like, he's a kind of a grandpa figure in an action series. It's interesting. His casting was interesting to me.
Yeah,
actually.
what's the idea behind Star Trek? Kirk is the whatever, Bones is the heart, Spock is the brain. Like they're each like one element of the same person, kind of.
Yeah.
And Santini is the heart, right? Mm-hmm. Of the Airwolf, and then I don't know what the hell.
So maybe it would be like, because it's body, it's either body soul mind, like body soul mind, or body heart mind, depending on who's talking about the theory. So like Kirk was the body, Bones was the heart or the soul, and then of course Spock was the mind. Perhaps what we have here is Airwolf is the mind in the 3-part triumvirate, and then Stringfellow's the body, and Ernest Borgnine is the heart or the soul.
I think that's, I think we're going to see that Airwolf emerges to be a main character in the whole thing. He's not Kit.
No.
No.
But yeah, I think he'll become. I think it will become a character. I think it will.
So what you're saying is when Airwolf launches a missile and blows up like a Jeep, Airwolf just destroy that Jeep with its mind.
No, I'm saying the action was made possible by the incredible technical abilities of Airwolf as the mind. Mm-hmm. I'm trying, man.
I know. It's tough.
We might just not have a 3-part thing here. Like a classic partnership though isn't a bad thing. Like they are sort of. It's a father-son story to some extent. He's an absentee father. We are led to believe his father's dead or gone or something, right? But that they all fought together at some point, and I think it's nice having a warm father figure in a story. I mean, and as we've discussed, that emotional that warmth is necessary.
One of the the disappointing things about that, which I observed here, was. And it's kind of a common illness. I actually saw it this weekend in the Rings of Power. They did the same thing. Okay. They fall back on this. Remember the time this happened bit? Yeah. They fall back on that. You remember the time thing, and Santini actually did it twice in this episode, referring to Stringfellow's dad. So
yeah,
to me. That's like in lieu of like real character building where, you have two people interacting and doing something. What they're getting away with here, maybe not getting away with, what they're trying to accomplish here is by simply saying, "Oh yeah, remember that time we did my dad, your dad, and I did." They're creating a backstory very cheaply. I to me it just smacks of amateurishness. But
yeah, I mean,
I don't think anybody's gonna accuse Belisario of being an amateur. It's just it just seemed like a cheap way of doing it.
I mean, it's certainly a shortcut, right? And in an hour-long drama, which is actually 42 minutes because you have to have the commercials and all that other stuff, I think we will forgive them some shortcuts, but I think we would in that instance, we would have taken a different shortcut. Like, it's easy to have that shorthand where someone says, like, well, back in the day, like, we start this show by me saying, this is one of my best friends in real life. Like, there is a pre-existing relationship, although we actually have a pre-existing relationship.
Right.
And so that is their sort of shorthand, like, wink, wink, by the way, audience, these guys have known each other for a long time. And, like, I don't so much mind them doing it, but I'd like them, if they're going to do that, build something. You know what I mean? Like, actually give me, like, an interesting piece of information, not just, like, I don't even remember what the story was. It couldn't have been that memorable. Like, it's like some camping nonsense, or, you know, like, they were out in the bush.
It wasn't anything. It wasn't like Chekhov's gun or anything like that. It wasn't going to come back to haunt us later in the episode. But it's not immediately clear what's happening, right? Like Santini and Stringfellow, like, go out into the desert, and they're like, oh, you know, you don't want to get lost out here, you'll die, or something, right? And then they like go down, they like find this like hole. They go down into the hole. Like, we don't, you know,
as the audience, we as people who watched this before know that they're finding the base from which Airwolf will launch its missions in the future. And it makes sense in retrospect, but as you're watching it, it's just sort of like, what is going on?
Yeah, and it seems kind of transactional with Archangel at that point, and it's like, what is going on here? Like if I'm in 1983, like, watching this on TV for the first time, I'm like, you like totally missed that scene. It doesn't make any sense, which is kind of cool in a way. Like, you're leaving, you know, these breadcrumbs for the audience to follow, which, you know, it's smart. You know, you're building something up. It doesn't. I just wish that whole interaction didn't take so long. Like, you don't need to spend like that much time on that whole thing. Yeah, you know,
it established a value of expertise for Santini. Like, he's the one that knows where it was. They leave the breadcrumb. But then my question is, like, going back to the format, how many people in the next week when the show came on were like, oh, that's what that scene was about, where they flew into the hole? Like, I wonder. Listen, I'm not against having things in there for the sharper people who are going to watch more closely and really invest, but you might have lost some people. It's interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was ham-fisted, but it was like, it seemed like let's somehow not done right.
Let's be kind. It was in need of an edit. They could have. They could have trimmed it. You know, like, yeah.
So
they find.
So
go ahead.
We do all this. He talks to Archangel. We find out that Gabrielle is like out in Libya. This, you know, clearly gets Stringfellow pissed off, and he like books it to.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a choice, right? He's like, you're leaving for Libya tomorrow morning, and that's.
Yeah, and then go to this place. You're gonna be this guy.
Yeah.
And then he gets off this airplane, and this woman meets him, and we find out that Stringfellow doesn't wear any underwear.
Weird dropping. Weird. I didn't.
What was that? I don't understand.
I am fascinated to know whether or not that was scripted or an improv. I kind of hope it was an improv.
No, it definitely was. Look at that guy. He's not going to improv that.
Oh, but I want it to be an improv because that's so weird to make it like the writer made a character choice. Okay, you know.
You know, at that very moment, I was like, oh shit! Like, is Stringfellow a James Bond kind of character? Like, wherever he goes, he like meets these babes, and he like.
You think he was
sex with everybody?
You think he was?
You know, it's like, oh, he's gonna have sex with this. He's gonna have sex with this FBI lady. You know?
Yeah. No.
And of course, nothing, right? But there was like, for me, there was like this brief hope, that, like, oh man, is this gonna be like an international man of intrigue who like flies around in his like top secret helicopter and bangs hot chicks? I don't know.
I mean, but it couldn't have been that, because at that point, Gabrielle is still in play. And we would have probably, as an audience, disliked him if he decided to, you know.
I know, which is what made that whole exchange like even weirder. You know, it's like, what is going on?
Here's my read. Here's my read. Some writer knew, like, a Navy SEAL who was like, I don't wear underwear because that's one more step for me to get ready, and I want to be able to get ready as quick as possible to kill people and get out there and do my job. And they just thought that, like, badass dudes don't wear underwear. So that was just a character trait that they thought Stringfellow Hawk should have. That's my headcanon. I got nothing else. I hope that works for people.
Okay. So yeah, but this whole thing is like, oh, we set this thing up very hastily for you.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna assume this identity,
Yeah.
this guy. They like go into like a great deal of detail about like, oh, he lived in Argentina. He was a doctor. He didn't go to medical school with anybody on the plane.
Yeah.
It's like it was like
it was spy stuff.
Like
it was interesting. I like the touch of his bio being inserted into a book at a certain chapter, so that he could read it unobtrusively on the plane. I thought that was a nice little touch.
Yeah, no, it's cool stuff. It just like, again, it was like the maybe this is maybe you like chalk this up to directing. I guess I don't know. It's like the whole tone of it was like very peculiar. Like the whole like the rhythm and pacing of the episode felt. And look, we're looking at it from the perspective of like modern TV, which is yeah. Well, it's also the best that TV's ever been, right?
Fair enough.
Like,
yes.
TV's never been as good as it is right now. It'll probably continue to get better, but like the whole rhythm and pacing of the episode felt very, And when you're jumping in time and traveling great distances, it lends itself to being choppy like that.
I wonder if what you're picking up on is sort of a lack of creativity from the perspective of the director and or anyone, in that it was a scene between a man and a woman. It didn't need to be flirty, right? It didn't need to have that energy. It was about spy stuff. It was a scene kind of to be like, look, cool spy stuff, right? But because it was a man and a woman, they tried to bring a flirty energy to it that was not particularly well executed, and also sort of did not fit in, and maybe it was well executed, but it didn't work for me because it didn't fit into the rest of the episode and the rest of the tone of the entire thing.
Yeah, it was like you got a very clear mission. You got to go save this woman that you clearly care about. Like what is all.
It's a lot of extra stuff. Yeah.
Like this whole bit, to me was like, we're gonna explain something, and then we're gonna like spice it up.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, it was like we don't really need to explain this. Like he gets to Libya. Santini gets to Libya. We don't.
Yeah.
We don't have an explanation for Santini. Like he's just like, oh, I showed up,
Well, they set something up in the last episode, or maybe during the weird helicopter flight. I don't know. It doesn't super matter, but
you see what I'm saying? It's like
it's unnecessary.
Oh, we're sending her to Libya. She's in Libya. Santini's in Libya.
Yeah. Like,
oh, you're gonna go to Libya, and we're gonna like.
Well, is that lady in the show going forward? Are we meeting her because she's a character going forward? Is that why? Are they establishing a character?
I don't know.
We'll find out next episode. Maybe we had to meet her because she was in effect the replacement for other characters.
I mean, she was kind of like, she was like the, the Q, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's right. She's like a facilitator. She's a character that I think exists in this world, but yeah, I mean, it was a little unnecessary. I don't think it bugged me quite as much as it bugged you, but I think the highlight of that whole thing, and I'm glad you brought it up, was the underwear comment. And and then basically we end up in Libya.
She's in one episode, man. IMDb says one episode of Airwolf.
That's wild. Then I got nothing. I tried. I did what I could for you, Airwolf. Let's move. So at this point we have. Did we skip? Was it already established that Gabrielle's the new dancer, and that because I know it is established that Gabrielle's the new dancer in Angela's place, and that they already know she's a spy. By they I mean the head of the Libyan military,
Moffat and
Moffat.
Libyan guys. Yeah. Right. It's like, oh yeah, she came from the same agency as.
And what a bad look for the firm, right? Like, they make them look like painfully stupid. Oh yeah, She came from the same talent agency, and they're all spies that come from there, apparently. It's like, wow.
They're like okay with it. They're like, okay, she's a spy. And he's like, yeah, I know she's a spy.
Yeah, I mean,
get her.
If that's the setup that CIA is doing, why would you upset the apple cart as their enemies? Like, you just watch the lady dance for a while, and then you torture her and kill her. Like, it's the rinse and repeat. They keep sending easily identifiable spies. That's great.
And like when Stringfellow shows up in Libya, he's like, I'm just gonna walk right into a dressing room. We're gonna have this conversation out in the open about what's going on. It was like, it's like there's absolutely no like subterfuge going on here. It's like well, you're here now, I'm here, let's talk about our mission. Like in the dressing room. It's it's like, I just landed, I'm clearly an American, she's an American. It just I just didn't get that.
But okay, well, let's take a moment to say that, like, I will say that I think writing in TV and movies, the hardest part is exposition, right? Is explaining what the audience needs to know. And I think they're trying to do things to, like, liven up exposition and make it interesting. Now, we could argue with what they're considering important enough information to build scenes around, as we just did. But, like, that part is hard. I don't think they're doing a great job, but I want to acknowledge that is the hardest part of doing this. When you listen to actors talk and writers talk, they're always like, I had a paragraph of exposition. It was really hard because a lot of it was jargon and I just didn't understand it. So, like, I just want to say that, like, this can be the hardest part.
I mean, I've been in that situation before. It's like you're handed a block of text and you kind of have to, some of it you just have to get out. You just have to say it. It's like, for me with SVU, a lot of the time it's like, I've got to explain what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the script and it's like, all right, well, this person fell off this building. I found a gun up there. There was some, bullet casings and, I found some fingerprints. You got to you just kind of have to say it.
Yeah.
Because like in the real life situation, you do have to relay this information. Mm-hmm. What you're talking about is like, information for the audience's benefit.
Yes, 100%.
So it's like that is another, the classic example from Save the Cat is the Pope in the pool example, right? Do you know the Pope in the pool?
Tell me.
It's just like at the beginning of some movie, I don't remember the details, but like there's something going on in the Vatican. The Pope needs to tell the bishop about the news, so they set the scene where the Pope is like swimming laps in a swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
They like make the scene odd and interesting.
Yeah.
Revealing something kind of interesting about the character, in this case that the Pope is a fitness fanatic or something. And maybe I'm missing the point of why they did that in that particular story, but the general point that I'm trying to make is like, you put the Pope in the pool.
Yeah.
You create an interesting scenario for this exposition to take place in, and hopefully your audience kind of gets the information and is also entertained at the same time.
Yeah.
Like you get through this piece without a major bump on the road.
I think maybe they were trying to do the Pope in the pool and they just didn't do the greatest job of making the pool, like, or picking the pool, if you will, like
picking the. Yeah.
So it's interesting though. It makes me think in Angels and Demons, when the Vatican comes to, I think, Tom Hanks's character, he's swimming. And he's swimming laps. I wonder if that was a little bit of a hat tip to that whole thing. I don't know.
Could have been.
Who knows? So Stringfellow.
She does say in this exchange, "I won't die."
She does very much say that. Now, I would like to discuss this with you. Let's step back for a minute. Now, the second they said we sent Gabrielle to Libya, the first thought that's been screaming across my head was, "Oh, don't kill her! Oh, come on! Oh, man!
I know.
What do you? Don't! Why?" And this is a pet peeve of mine, like, just generally, which is like, I call it like killing a dog. Like when people doing movies or anything, any story, honestly, like want to get a really emotional reaction, they just like fall back on like killing someone that you've been attached to, and the cheapest version of that is they just kill a dog because you don't even have to be attached, because most people just get sad when that happens. So sorry, John Wick, but it's true. But it's just, I hate being so sort of grossly manipulated by a story. Like, sometimes it's what you do. I'm not saying it's necessarily like bad because of it, but it's just like, I just dreaded it the whole time. It's just like,
well, like, like she's, the part of the issue here is that he is icy cold and, maybe I would say maybe appealing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she's in like a whole different category.
Mm-hmm. She's
like a whole nother level of appealing and personable, attractive, fun to watch. She's like.
Is your premise she was too good for him, so then had to die?
She's just like much more interesting than him, at this point in the story, right? So it's like, man, you gonna knock her out? It's like she's here, like, Santini is like right here. Well, and Stringfellow for me is, where's my hand? Where'd it go? I don't see it. Where'd it go?
I think it's safe to say that when we have liked him the most, it was reflected through affection coming from her or Santini, right? We're like, these people seem really cool and they like him. So, like, there's got to be something to this guy. And he's handsome. And listen, the stoic hero's a thing, right? Like, I'm not going to pretend that doesn't have some effect. But yeah, he's the least interesting character. But also, it's very likely that, practically speaking, this woman was hired for 2 episodes, right? Like, and that she needed to be written off the show. Now, it does seem like there are a world of options outside of killing her because she's an agent for the CIA or the FER.
Yeah,
but
it's interesting. I mean, we could look at it. I wonder.
If she had something else in the fire and was just available on a limited time basis.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. I don't remember her, like, as a featured actor. I'm sure she showed up as a guest in a myriad of shows. Well, I'm not sure, but I suspect. But...
Well, her list of credits isn't particularly long, but she has some things that are like... for example, a movie called Flashdance.
I know that movie. That's quite a famous movie. She's
like, probably number 8 billed in Flashdance. She's clearly a dancer. Like, we see her moving. Yeah, she was in RoboCop 2.
Okay, I mean, I like RoboCop 2. I'm wearing a RoboCop T-shirt, so that's nice.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's true. Look at that. She was in RoboCop 2.
Okay. Wow, I don't have that T-shirt, so you're gonna have to sell it. Maybe she worked with Jan Michael Vincent and said, "You know what?
I'm done. I'm good. I'm good.
I can find other ways to make money. It's fine." No, I don't. But they had some chemistry. I think his chemistry is better with Ernest Borgnine, but which is good for the show, honestly. But
Stringfellow and Santini, they move into this. Kind of espionage thing where they're kind of sneaking into this base. They have, Santini is speaking Italian. They talk to these Libyans. They let him in. They drive past. They see the Airwolf is just like
just sitting there,
out.
loving it. Just very convenient.
Just like in the courtyard there, like. It's not even. They don't even have to do much. They just have to drive past this one gate.
Yeah.
They kind of just talk their way past.
Nobody saw it coming, and they're very clever.
And there it is. Airwolf is. Check it out.
Well then,
it's right there.
And then we switch to the pool scene, right, where the guy gets out of the water, and we find out that Gabrielle's been taken, and she's in the desert with Moffat, and the guy's like, "That's not my problem," basically, and to go back. This is the same person who showed a certain amount of concern about blowing up an American destroyer, right? So this is the moral center of the bad guys.
Right, but his morals aren't that strong because they did blow up the destroyer. Right?
Yeah,
so.
and he's not doing anything about Gabrielle in the desert.
He's like, well, you know,
He's like,
I don't like this.
Shouldn't you be concerned too? And then our heroes come in at the perfect moment, and when the guy says, "I don't care," and they're like, "I do."
They're pulling they pull the old Han Solo and Luke Skywalker in the Stormtrooper outfits.
Yep.
Gag. That's not the first Star Wars reference I'm going to make today, though. By the way.
Well, this is the first. It's not the last.
Wait, it's not the last. My entire life is a Star Wars reference, so I guess in many ways it isn't the first. But and just like in Star Wars, the stormtroopers have terrible aim.
Oh my God! Okay, yeah, we got to talk about this. So they're sneaking out. Of course, it doesn't quite work because it never quite works, right? Santini gets into the helicopter and
gets it started.
Well,
he's like looking around. What's the button? Oh, I gotta press the button.
Yeah, he finds the on button, and then we get the classic '80s hero maneuver, which is to take no cover with the machine gun and shoot at numerous other people shooting at you. Effectively. It is wild. The other side just doesn't... Like, he shoots like 5 people. They're all at different vantage points. He has to move in between. And they all
have higher ground. Holy cow.
And they're shooting the whole time. And it's just like, it's hitting the helicopter. It's hitting the ground. It is as if he has some sort of magic force field of goodness. Maybe that's how we approach this. We're going to, just to be honest with you folks, we play Dungeons and Dragons. So he is a paladin with some sort of like bubble. A la WoW, maybe, right? And that's the only explanation for this, so that's what I'm going with. But
and remember this for later that we talked about this. Bad guys have terrible aim.
Okay, and then just because it sets up the next scene, I want to establish that we know that you can shoot Airwolf through a very small tube it has in the front. And make it explode.
Much like what, John?
Much like the Death Star.
Much like the Death Star.
But be that as it is, we're gonna forge ahead. So we end up they get out in Werewolf and they fly out into the desert. They're able to follow tracks. Santini excitedly learns how to make it work at one point, and we discover Gabrielle. Not quite dead.
Oh man!
I love that we always get there just in time to hold them through the final breath. Like that's how this works. And
what I was asking myself is like, what happened to her? Right? She got sunburn. Look, I'm not going to minimize heat stroke. Heat stroke is a real thing, and people can die from heat stroke. It happens. It happens a lot. It happens altogether too much to children who are left in cars, to dogs.
Yeah.
But
I live in the desert, and the time that passes should not be sufficient to kill a healthy adult, particularly considering that they arrived and had water, right? So hopefully it would have been nice if they had electric lights. That would have been better, actually, given what's recommended by first aid in that situation. But it does not feel earned. Like, I don't know why they just don't have Moffat actually do something to kill her. Like, just I guess because then they couldn't hold her. I don't know.
I think the real if I was writing this, which I'm not, but
we're going to.
I think the real challenge would be for. Look, Moffat. Are we up to the pistol part yet with Moffat?
That comes next.
Can we talk about that?
We can talk about that.
So Moffat's bad guys have terrible aim, but Moffat has a pistol and he's probably 300 to 400 feet away from Airwolf.
Yes.
And he's aiming at this hole that he described earlier, where you could shoot into and blow up Airwolf.
Yes, it is. The angle is impossible. There's no way you could make it go down into it shooting up. It doesn't make any sense.
Nothing about it makes any sense. It's not a threat at all.
No, it's.
But let's just entertain the idea that there's a world where Stringfellow can know about this. He can know that this is the weak spot.
Yeah.
And let's say Moffat was aiming at Stringfellow with this gun, but he had Gabrielle, as a human shield.
That's more interesting.
Now it's interesting, right? Yeah. Now Stringfellow has to make a choice. Do I kill Gabrielle?
Yeah.
Look, I can't blame the writers for wanting to shy away from a moment like that. But to me, that's like many times more interesting.
Yeah.
Because now you're gonna tie in regret. You're gonna tie in all this stuff. Like, he still has all that stuff to a lesser degree because he couldn't get there in time to save her.
Yeah.
But he literally mushroom clouds Moffat, right? He sends him to smithereens.
Yeah. Well,
do you
think Moffat's dead?
Yes.
I don't.
You don't think he's dead?
They don't kill people off screen that are named and then have them not pop back up. It's not how TV shows work.
Well, I think if you're watching this, I want you to write in the comments now whether you think Moffat's dead or alive, because I want to see what the poll would say. I think it's going to bear 100%. Out that A, most people think he's dead.
They're wrong.
Me,
that's fine.
And B, we never see Moffat again. We never see him again. I'm positive. We're going to hear his name. They're going to mention Moffat.
Yep. Okay. Well, guys, while you're commenting, like and subscribe. No, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that feedback. This is my decades of watching TV kicking in. I don't like that we didn't actually get to see. Although this may be a modern sensibility, and that certainly a current show, we'd see the hole in his chest, right? It would be graphic if they were going to kill that character off. We would see it now.
Right.
I should keep in mind.
We'd see
it would be gory. We would see
it would
gory.
be like a Game of Thrones. Somebody would
100%.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, maybe the reason that didn't happen is because they couldn't do it back then. So I should keep that in mind. But, they were doing gross stuff in, the zombie movies at the time and things like that. There were people who could have gotten some squibs on that guy. It wasn't that outside the realm of possibility.
I mean, okay, but so we kind of got ahead of ourselves.
Right,
there are a couple of points I wanted to make about
let's get back to it.
this whole sequence that went on.
So they're trying to kind of evoke a showdown at high noon, right? But the problem with it is, me as an audience member did not. I know they were trying to make me feel afraid for Airwolf, given the scenario they set up, but I was at no point concerned for the crew of Airwolf that Moffat was pointing a pistol at them.
I mean, and the lead up to this whole dogfight sequence was peculiar and weird, because there was music, but there was no sound. So all the explosions and everything were muted and muffled. So I felt like you kind of lost steam leading up to this. It was just a weird editing choice.
Yeah, I mean, I found the transition fairly effective. It was just basically the point was clear, right? Airwolf is kick butt, right? Airwolf handles its business. It mowed through a bunch of vehicles of different types, and then we're able to track Moffat and bring us to this supposedly fraught confrontation, which is, to me, seemed more evocative of people who go after cops with the intent of not surviving. And things like that. It was basically Moffat just being all right, I'm going to go down angry, pointing a gun and pulling the trigger for no reason, but that's all I can do. Which I understand from his perspective. It doesn't super track with that character to me. He seems like he would try something more clever.
But we were kind of set up, right? We had the scene in the swimming pool where he's basically shooting a nickel out of somebody's hand.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
He explained the weak spot. So we, they tried to wrap it up into this moment, and for me, it was still like a so what
Yeah.
kind of thing.
If we look at it like a logical argument, right, and we accept their premises that he is the greatest shot ever, and that this is an actual
He's Robin Hood.
that this is an actual threat to Airwolf, that he has this pistol out from 300 yards away in the sand with a hovering thing. If I can accept those premises, which clearly we both struggled with, I understand the scene. It's just, it doesn't really work the way they want it to, in my mind. Like, I get satisfaction. Moffat's blown up, even though I don't believe it. Moffat's blown up, the good guys win, they have Airwolf, and then we... are you ready to move on to now the final discussion with Archangel?
We're back in Oregon, or wherever the hell we are.
The art's been returned.
California.
I think Grandpa will be very pleased.
All of it, though? Was all of it returned?
Was all of it returned? I
don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know that it matters.
Okay, so he's back at home. Archangel shows up. You know.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird
well,
dialogue.
I think,
right? Weird.
Let's paraphrase. Archangel's premise is basically like, okay, I want you guys to keep it because you'll be able to do stuff with it, and they won't let us do anything with it. So this actually kind of works out, and it'll just be between us, and you're effectively now well, I mean, the modern equivalent is he's like a superhero, right? Like he's Iron Man, but his suit's a helicopter. And he's going to go vigilante around the world now, theoretically, with his buddy Santini, with the tacit approval of Archangel, who is or is not representing the CIA. I think that's unclear, sort of.
Just very, very odd the way it ends. And you know, Archangel's at the door.
Oh.
You know, he's about to leave.
You're going to make me talk about this. Okay.
And what does he say? He asks...
Did she
suffer?
And that is so unearned for that character. I'm sorry. You sent her to like...
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, he sent her into the lion's den.
Like, yeah, no, unearned.
But then, the response is no.
He lets him off the hook, which is a lie. Okay, let's go.
Let off the hook.
Back to Airwolf to Rewolf. Let's go.
Do you remember when you saw Titanic for the first time?
Yes.
Okay, I remember it very clearly. The last scene of Titanic. Tell me about it.
Okay, last scene. Are we talking about when Rose heartlessly kills Leonardo DiCaprio, or are we talking about...
Yes.
Yes.
I remember thinking, why doesn't she try to get him up on these planks with her?
It's the worst. She's the worst. And then at the end, she drops the diamond into the ocean. Lady, that diamond's worth so much money. Like, give it to poor people. What are you doing dropping like $1 billion diamond into the ocean?
So
it's wild.
But this reminded me of Titanic, right? With Gabrielle laying there dying, and he's like, I'm helpless to stop you dying, and she just like dies.
Yeah. And
that was a Titanic moment for me.
Santini's running over with like a cantina of water, which seems like a really good solution. I don't and okay.
Why'd they park so far away?
It's a helicopter.
They parked like 3 blocks away, and he's got to run down these dunes.
Okay, why didn't he just take the canteen with him when he ran? It would have been that hard to grab it before, because he clearly faster than
mistakes were made.
But I don't think it would have mattered. I think she had the opposite of plot armor. Whatever the opposite of plot armor is, she had.
Right. Yeah. She was like, she had homing death on her. Death was coming. No, any bullet would have got her. You know, some bad guy could have shot a gun right in the air and it would still hit her.
For those.
Meanwhile, you could aim straight at Airwolf. You could aim straight at Jan Michael Vincent, and you're never gonna hit him.
For those of you unfamiliar with the term plot armor is your character has to survive. So you cannot be killed because you're in the next episode. So you have plot armor. It's not a nice term.
No, but it's why when Game of Thrones came out, it was so mind blowing for people because we realized there was no plot armor.
Yeah, that was a big deal for him. He said that the reason he does that is so that you don't have the comfort that you usually do when you read that sort of story. I have mixed feelings about him. We can get into that
it goes into actor contracts too. Like when an actor signs on to a show, they're going to guarantee you a certain amount of space, a certain amount of time on the show, starting at the guest star level. And then when you're a series regular, like when your name is in those front credits, you're contracted for those episodes, right? So like, it's a big deal when someone's made a series regular on a show. I mean, remember years ago, and I mean, 90210 when they killed off one of their series regulars, but he was like never in the show. Like he was never there.
Yeah, I remember that bull crap. They were just like a series member died, a cast member dies on this episode of 90210, and it's like,
but like he was like in the pilot, and then like they never like had him, and then he died, and they had an episode about him when he died. But it was like when the show started, you still saw him at the beginning. He was like, he
was Brian Austin Green. My recollection is he was Brian Austin Green's friend who he ditched when he went and started hanging out with the cool kids.
Yep.
Like that was sort of that.
And they like never went back.
Yeah, and it was.
But he was still up front of credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. So basically, he was useful to them for that. we can hype up this one episode and get a lot of people to watch it.
But they like kind of basically wrote him out. Like Tasha Yar, Yashitar, what the hell?
Tasha Yar was correct.
Right. She's like, she's like, I want more story. I'm like, all right, well, you're gonna get lost then. She was like, all right, I'm out.
That was bad. She would have been really good for that show. I think that was actually ultimately a mistake, but we're getting way off the reservation on this one.
All right, you were trying to end the show, so I'm just going to say thanks a lot and subscribe and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, everybody, please like and subscribe. We're going to try to do these episodes once a week. We appreciate you. We hope you're following along. We're watching it on Tubi, which has been really nice. It's free. I've had no issues with it. How about you, Paul? Tubi working for you?
Tubi working great. Commercials, not so bad. Just hit mute or whatever.
Yeah. I wonder if that's going to get worse. My wife swears that, like, the longer you watch a show on a free thing, like, the more commercials you get.
We'll have to take note.
I don't know. Well, that's one.
Hey, check me out on Law and Order SVU episode 4, new season. Check it out. Bobby Nardone. Check it out.
Yeah. Soon.
I got another one coming up. I can't talk about it yet, but I got something else in the works. I've been shooting some episodes over here.
All right. Hashtag Detective Nardone. Hashtag give him the gold shield. Let's do it. All right, guys. We're gonna say goodbye for this episode of Airwolf to Rewolf. I hope you liked it. I'm signing off. John, aka DorkLovesSports. Please like and subscribe. Say goodbye to the folks, Paulie.
Take it easy, guys. Have a good week. Bye-bye.